Welcome to Now Daily. I'm Robert Crawford. This episode is going to be about the war on drugs. I wanted to look at an article that I just came across about Portugal and then talk about a little bit of the history on the war on drugs and how it is basically a complete failure and why it has nothing to do with drug prevention or preventing abuse of drugs and saving lives in America. It is actually all about money and keeping control of the power and the drug supply with the dark government in order to fund their black operations. So let's start with this Portugal article because I think this really explains it all. Portugal decriminalized all drugs from weed to heroin, all of it, not just weed, heroin, cocaine, DMT, whatever it is, and things keep getting better. So in 2000, they made a change to decriminalize drugs in Portugal. And what we've seen from the skeptics in 2000 said Portugal's crazy, they're going to see drug abuse all over the place, they're going to see deaths of drugs skyrocket, and what actually happened in reality, it all dropped. And it all dropped significantly. And I think a lot of it has to do with the mentality. Once something's not illegal anymore, look at prohibition with alcohol in the United States back 100 years ago, right? When things aren't illegal anymore, the stigma around it changes. And if it's not illegal and someone is abusing heroin, they're addicted to something like heroin, people now look at it at a medical aspect. And they say, okay, how can we help these people? People don't have to keep it underground anymore so they can get more help from normal society. But Portugal has really proven this. So the law took effect in Portugal in 2001, in which there were 80 overdose deaths throughout Portugal. The entire country had only 80 overdose deaths. Now, this data in 2012 said that in 2012 there were only 16 overdose deaths. That's about 20% of what it was in 2001 when they were illegal. The new cases of HIV dropped from 1,016 cases in 2001 when it was enacted to only 56 cases in 2012. Why? I would imagine because you're not doing something illegal with these needles, and I think that has a lot to do with the HIV. People are sharing dirty needles. Now if you can go to the store and buy the needles legally, there's no need to go underground and do it like they were doing. Now it doesn't fix every issue. There's still 16 overdose deaths. There's no utopia. You can slap a million laws in the book, and technically they probably are way over a million right now, and it's still not going to fix things. We can't fix human behavior. You can only get rid of the bad aspects of it. Legalize it all because it's going to change the mentality of what people are talking about. Now compare the death rate to the EU death rate, which is 17.3 million, 17.3 deaths by drug abuse per million people. And now in Portugal, the rate is 3 per million. So significantly lower. All the other European countries I believe are still going after and persecuting drug abusers. But what's happening in Portugal is it's significantly reduced, even though it's now legal. So they had criticism at first. Really amazing. You know, I'll post a link to this article. Anything less than a gram of heroin, ecstasy, or amphetamines, 2 grams of cocaine, or 25 grams of cannabis will receive a citation to come to a dissuasion panel. So basically, they're not throwing people in jail. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world in the United States, and the war on drugs is mainly the main reason that we have so many people in jail. And the majority of those drug abusers weren't violent offenders, they were personal users. Some of those people were dealers. That doesn't mean every dealer is a bad person. A lot of people deal drugs in college just to help pay for the bills. Not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying let's get the government out of it. Why? Well, let's look a little deeper on the war on drugs. The war on drugs was really a term that was made popular on June 18th, 1971 by President Nixon. And right now, the war on drugs is costing the United States at least $51 billion a year in order to enact their laws, throw people in jail, and try to prevent this. So let's first ask, has this helped at all? Has the drug abuse in the United States gone down at all? Well, let's do a quick search. Drug overdoses in the United States. Cause of death, 2014, drug overdose total in the United States, 47,055 overdoses. What's the number one reason someone overdoses? Yep, pharmaceutical opioids. 18,893 overdoses, followed by heroin overdose, 10,574. Now, if you just went to Portugal's numbers, right, they had basically an 80% reduction in overdose deaths. That alone, if you just reduce this heroin overdose number, and let's just say that it worked the same way, that would reduce it from over 10,000 to about 2,000 deaths per year. That's huge. That's more than almost all the gun deaths. So why are they talking about guns? You know, there's only been a few hundred people killed in these mass shootings when this is something that could easily be changed, and you could save right here 8,000 lives just off the heroin overdoses, just by legalizing it, because Portugal has already proved that fact over a decade. Why aren't we doing it? Right? We can go into some of these more statistics on what's going on, but here's why we're not doing it. Huffington Post. Ron Paul had accurate conspiracy theory. CIA was tied to drug traffickers. Why is this big war on drugs? Because the government wants to keep their monopoly on the supply. That's it. They want to be able to sell drugs under the table to get cash to pay for their black operations. Don't believe me? Well, there's plenty of information in here. In 1988, they were running for the Libertarian Party ticket. This talks about how the CIA was involved in the Iran-Contra scandals. We're talking about how they were involved in South America back in the 70s and 80s, and they're involved with the Mexican drug cartels right now. They are arming these cartels, they are running the drugs across the border, and there are so many people that have come out and spoken about this, that this is a fact. They are running the drugs themselves, which is why we still have these ridiculous laws in the books. This is why we're still throwing people in jail left and right over having a joint. If you're in Virginia and you have a joint, even though it's decriminalized in DC, if you go right across the Potomac River and a cop catches you, they're going to throw you in jail, and possibly for a few years. If you have a good amount of it, you're going to be in jail possibly for life off of a weed. We need to look at this another way. It's one thing if Portugal legalized it and then their drug abuse skyrocketed. But the facts are saying if you legalize the drugs, you treat them and you regulate them like you would a pharmaceutical or a cigarette, you're going to get much better results. It's going to save a ton of money. It's going to save a ton of lives, and that's what should be done. Why are we not doing this? Why are we being distracted by these other bullshit causes and not dealing with the real problems at hand? I'm Robert Crawford. This is Now Daily. Comment below. Share this video. We need to awaken people to the facts of the drug war, and we need to stop this drug